Welcome, Drink with James, episode 132. The beard, as we said, was the winner. I feel like it's coming in decently nicely, more even than I remember. So Team Beard, I'm working on it. There's not much faster that I can go than this. I'm going to LA tomorrow. While you will see this and I will always already be back in the warm embrace of New York, I would ask you to pray for me. I always struggle going to LA. There's just a lot of very chill people, just trying to vibe out and so I'm gonna throw my suit on. I always get a lot of weird looks when I'm in LA for the way I dress. But big day of meetings, and I get to teach a class at UCLA. So I am going to be a professor, at least for a little while.
What's your class on?
I should look at what my class is on. I'm guessing my class is on influencer marketing in some way. I think I'm speaking to some marketing students about influencer marketing. I'm probably most qualified to teach a class on influencer marketing. What I would like to teach a class on, what would be a good personal journey? If I could teach a class, I would do The Rock and his role in American culture. We would trace it and start from pro wrestling, which I was not a pro wrestling fan, so it forced me to do some research on The Rock. Understand, how do you get out of pro wrestling into being the most successful actor 5 years running in a row? That is a glow up that I do not understand at all. And I think personally having to teach it would be very interesting to learn. So yeah, it would be on The Rock. Rock 101. I don't know what the class would actually be called, but maybe one day, maybe if I sell 4, I can just start holding lectures on The Rock or something to try and understand the enigma that is Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. Anyway, exciting news. We are launching a new piece of content. It's already launched, actually. So we have a new podcast. It's called Foreground. I am not hosting it, which is probably a pretty big relief for a lot of people, certainly myself included. But Tim is mostly taking the reins on this with a couple other people from the team jumping in. It is interviews with influencers, people in the industry, but it is not like Drink with James. It's not focused necessarily on advice or how to be successful on Instagram, but is more of a backstory of who these people are, who is the person behind the Instagram, much more human interest and storytelling than it is advice and me running my fucking mouth about things. So if that's your kind of thing, the first episode, I'm actually a guest and I get interviewed. Tim and I get wasted and talk about how I started the company, and if that's a story you haven't heard, it's probably the most extensive version I've told in it, and certainly the most we've kind of dug into the history of Four and my background, and kind of how we got from Rich and I in an apartment to near 30 people here in Soho. So that episode is live. There was lots more to come. We've already done a few episodes with great guests. It is a separate podcast from Drink with James, so you have to. How do they find it? So if you just search for Four in the wherever you get your podcasts, you should see Foreground and Drink with James will be kind of split in two now. So subscribe to both. Let us know who you want on there. Super excited for this to launch, and let us know what you think. So, anything else? Another thing, if you are in New York City, we have a For You event in the office on Wednesday. It is completely sold out. We didn't sell tickets, but it is at max capacity. We had 175 RSVPs. If you would like to go and you're in New York City and you missed RSVPing, email tim@4.co, and he will see if he can sneak you in. Okay, let's go to the show. Yeah? Question one is, when do I know if I've given this enough time? When do I know if I should quit? This is a great question. Yeah, I feel like we've answered something similar to this a few times, but I just want to take a moment to talk about craft and to talk about getting good at something. I wrote an email to brands recently, and I showed a photo that I had taken in 2009 and then a photo I'd taken in 2011. And they are quite different. They certainly do not look like the same person took the photo. My point in that was that between those two photos, I probably took 300,000 photos. I was completely obsessed with photography. I shot constantly. I ended up getting decent. And what most people don't see is the hundreds of thousands of crappy photos that I took that each time I got a little better, a little better, and a little better. My point to brands was that if you haven't started doing influencer marketing yet as a company, you need to start just to practice to try and get better. This is going to be a big part of the world. And if you're not good at it now, that's okay, but you have to put yourself out there and learn and invest in the craft to get better. And so for influencers, when is the right time to quit? Well, if you actually like what you're doing, then who the hell cares, right? If you are doing this to build a following and to have a career, it will not work. I fundamentally believe it won't work, because unless you are independently wealthy, or in some way blessed with a genetic code that makes you one of the best looking people in the world, I don't think you can be successful anymore without an immense amount of pain, suffering, and perseverance. And I think we were just talking about a great example of someone who's been on the show, Jamie Beck. When she came on the show, she had 120,000 followers. Jamie got a big following early on Instagram. I think she had 100K very early on. So she went from, probably in 5 years, she went from 100K to 120K. Like, she had essentially no growth for years. She moved to Provence. She was always shooting incredible stuff. But we talked about on the show, her following never really went anywhere. She started doing the self-portraits, and she started doing her still lifes, and she did them over and over and over again, and she got better and better and better. She invested in her craft. This was not sponsored posts. This was not her getting paid. She wasn't selling the work. She wasn't making any money on it. But every day she created some piece of art, and every day they got better and better and better and better. Go look at her first self-portraits or her first still lifes, and they look nothing like the ones that she's doing now. She took everyone along on that journey, and now I just looked at her feed the other day. She's at 210,000 followers, 209,000 followers. So she's gained, 90,000 followers since she's been on the show, which was, 9 months ago? 10 months ago? Something? A year?
I think it's been over a year.
Over a year? So maybe in the last year she gained 90,000 followers, but she hadn't gained followers in 5 years. And so I think the point is that you need to be investing in yourself and thinking about, what do I want to get better at, and what do I not know that I need to know? And you need to put your head down and you need to do the work. I feel like most creative endeavors are like blacksmithing, I feel like, where it is, what's the word I want to look for? It is like a craft. It is something that, if you practice it enough, you're good, right? Like, I am not an artist. First time I picked up a camera, it wasn't like, the heavens opened up and I was like any great talent or anything. It is something that you get rewarded with the work that you put into it. And so whether that is your writing, or it is photography, or it is video, whatever those things are, you get better by doing more of it. I feel like there has been this shift in the influencer space away from craft, as people look inwards towards themselves and they want the only thing they care about is them. What am I doing? What meetings am I going to today? What sponsored posts am I getting? What free shit am I going to get? What What show am I getting into? Me. I think that's a race to the bottom. I don't think that you can create long-term sustainable growth without, at some point, focusing on your craft and getting good at that. I mean, look at every actor in the world, right? I mean, that's as much of a lottery as anything if you can win that and you can be a successful actor, right? For a lot of people, that's the dream. You need to have an immense amount of talent to even line up at the fucking side of the pool, and then it is decades of like terrible struggle, because the reward is so huge, it's so vast. To like be a movie star, you know, to get a role in a big picture, like your life is fundamentally changed forever, okay? And we've talked about this a little bit in the influencer space. Like, you get that 100, 200, 300,000 followers, your life will be fundamentally changed. A few years ago, I don't think that was common knowledge. It is now. And so it is so much harder to build that following. And I think that, like, you know, photography, like being an actor or a painter or a poet or a CEO, the hard work has to happen in private. The hard work, you have to put the work in, and you have to have a thing that you are getting better at, or you're understanding more. And if your thing is style, and like you're just like, I want to have the best style on, you know, Instagram, well, I ask you, like, what are you doing to make that better? Are you reading biographies of every designer? Do you understand the history of the houses? Do you understand why, you know, a Saint Laurent show from 2001 was great and one from 97 was terrible? Like, are you pushing yourself to understand so much more about clothes than your followers will ever know, so that you can describe to them in a really simple way that they can understand, and then they can go tell their friends what it is that makes a Balenciaga piece terrible? Or let's say this, what it is that made old Celine great and new Celine bad? You know, can you convey that point? I think people have liked Drink with James because, you know, hopefully I give you advice that is easy to understand. But I didn't open my mouth for four years. I was running this company. Before that, I was, you know, one of the more followed photographers in the world for years. I've been putting stuff on the internet for over a decade. I didn't say shit for the first 10 years of that journey. 10 years. I didn't open my mouth. I gave no advice. I didn't say what you should be doing, what you should be thinking about, how you should grow, nothing. And, you know, now I feel like I can speak with a level of confidence because all of the work, that whole decade of shit, is in these episodes. And so I encourage you guys to look at yourselves and ask yourself, what am I better at than most people in the world? What do I understand better than most people in the world? If you don't have that answer, and if you aren't chasing that, or you don't have a goal to be that, then I don't know how much of a chance you have to make it anymore. You know, if you're going to be a photographer and you don't say, I'm going to be one of the best photographers in the world, you know, I know that, like, when Jamie Beck and I were, you know, 8 years younger, drinking, you know, in some bar in the Lower East Side, like, she was like, I'm going to shoot Vogue covers. That is what I'm going to do. I'm going to be one of the best photographers in the world. You know, and she has been putting that work in since she was 15. It is paying off now. She's not there yet. So ask yourself what that journey is for you, and really invest the time in it. You know, and if you need to say, like, okay, I need to make a living, I need to think about sponsored posts and all those things, cool. Even take 20% of your time and say 20% of my time every week, I'm going to be learning. I'm going to be doing something new. I'm going to be growing. I just don't know if most people have a mission. You know, like, I don't know if they have, like, a goal other than their own success. And I don't know I don't know that you can actually really be successful if your only goal is to be successful. I think you need to have something, something you want to do. I mean, it's interesting to even look back on someone young like, AOC. She's been talking like this for years, even when she was a bartender, and she's been working on it. She's had this bigger mission. And then, if you can combine a mission with a platform, really special things happen. But people don't give out platforms very easily. They're very hard to get, and by their nature take a long time to get them. So, end rant. Question number 2, what brands do you think are leaders in this space and think outside of the box? I've been on enough panels and everyone answers that they think Glossier and all these others are the leaders, and certainly they are utilizing influencers quite a bit, and they're doing it very effectively. I never say that I think they are the leaders because it's very easy for them. Everyone wants to work with Glossier. They have really cool product. They were founded by an influencer. Every influencer wants to work with them. Everyone's talking about them organically. So it's just not that hard for them. And so they don't have to be that good, because the entire company was set up so that people talked about it on Instagram. I look more towards companies that have maybe a harder time getting influencers to talk about them and watching what they do, because then you really have to be good at influencer marketing. I think if you're a P&G brand, your Pantene or your Degree or something like that, that's not a product that people are going to organically talk about much. So I'm interested always in how those brands set up their influencer activations, because I just think it's harder for them. Recently, I think from a much larger scale, it's been interesting what Adidas has done. I think that they had it was a situation where they were getting beat by Nike always. Nike was very focused on sport, and their influencers were just athletes, and Adidas, kind of has leaned in a lot more to pop culture. Essentially went to a open space in the field where Nike wasn't playing and said, okay, we're going to own this, and certainly has made Nike sweat a little bit, has chipped away at market share for the first time in decades, I think. And while their influencer strategy is enormous celebrities, I think that they went to a place where other people didn't go, and I think they did it really well. I liked the Breitling activations they were doing last year. They put influencers in fighter jets and shit. I just thought that was kind of cool to see, because I don't see, on my Instagram very often, I don't see people riding in fighter jets. So I think that was a cool example. I think in the beauty space, NARS always does, the stuff they do is always beautiful. They, often do a really good job of kind of syncing up what is happening on their brand-owned channels with what is happening in the influencer space. They did, and then what I like about NARS is I think when they do something, they do it big. They did that, they did an influencer trip, but did it to Bora Bora, to Mr. NARS's private island that he owns out there or something. It was just completely ridiculous and over the top and amazing. So I think those are a couple brands that are doing a pretty good job right now. Question number 3, what is the best way to make initial contact with brands? I think that a lot of times people are just way too timid, in general, but certainly when they reach out to people. Important to remember when you are reaching out to anyone cold, right? The point of that email is to get them to answer it. That is it. It is not to sell yourself. It's not to pitch your entire project. It's not to, the email doesn't have to do anything other than get them to respond. Once you get them to respond, you can try and set up a meeting. Once you set up a meeting, you then can pitch them. So you want to try and craft an email that gives them enough information to want to respond to you, but not too much to necessarily make the decision. Nobody is going to take a completely cold email that you've sent and decide yes or no if they want to work with you. They're going to need to probably get on the phone or talk to you. So first, remember, what is the point of that first email? It is to get them to respond and to try and build a relationship with them. The best way to do that is going to change all the time. I think that, the most important thing, if outbound email, if reaching out to brands is part of your strategy, which it definitely should be, it does not have to be, but I think it should be. The most important part of it is being relentless. You just have to have a follow-up strategy that is pretty consistent and thoughtful. We, I think, generally send 5 to 7 cold emails before we disqualify someone. You might say to yourself, 5 emails, that's insane. Isn't that really annoying? Potentially, yes. Potentially it's annoying. But if you send 2 emails and they never respond to you, or you send 5 emails and they say, hey, could you please stop emailing me? What's the fucking difference? In both situations, you are not working with that brand. So let's say there's a 15% chance that between email 2 and email 5, you catch them at the right time and they say, you know what, I'll jump on the phone and chat to you. Okay, that 15% chance is, over the course of a few years, a lot of business. And what happens if you send those 5 emails and 10% of brands say, hey, could you please stop emailing, take me off your list? That's no skin off your teeth. Well, who cares? You say, oh, totally understand, so sorry, hope to be in touch in the future. That is not something that someone's going to hold against you. The only thing that you should never do is if somebody asks you to stop emailing them, stop emailing them. Do not continue to email them after they've asked you to stop. But if they haven't asked you to stop, I would keep emailing them. It's hard to get in front of people. I had today 15 minutes of time that I was not in meetings. I haven't looked at my email. I haven't looked at my Slack. I haven't looked at my text messages. I have no fucking idea what's happening. Tonight, I'm running right after this. I'm getting a haircut. Well, I'm going to work out. Then I'm getting a haircut. Then I'm packing. Then I'm coming back to work. And I have solid meetings. Then I get on a plane. I fly to LA. And then I've got 8 hours, 10 hours of meetings. And then a dinner. And then I fly back to New York at 7 a.m. And then I come back and I've got a full day of meetings on Friday. What are the chances in that week I see your email and I'm able to give it the attention that I need? Pretty low. So if you email me this week, I may not respond to you, but maybe you send me an email Monday at 9:30 and I'm in the office and I'm like, oh, right, that person emailed me. I meant to follow up. I didn't. Here's their email again. Boom. Let me reply. I think there is a misconception on the influencer side of what brand people's lives look like. And especially at bigger companies, the inboxes are crazy. And your persistence, I think, will be rewarded with more responses. And your goal should be, again, to get them to respond. And that also means getting them to say, I'm not interested. If they say they're not interested, that's great. That's one less person you have to focus on. And you can just move on from there. But if they don't answer, then you're gonna, you've got this thing. Oh, should I keep emailing them? Should I email them again? Should I not? Etc. You can Google sales drip campaigns. This is what those are called. They're called a drip campaign. You can actually get software to help you run these campaigns automatically. So you don't have to do it. You can load the 5 emails you want to send, and they will automatically send them, and they'll send them at different times dependent on whether they opened the email or didn't open the email. If you want to get more kind of focused in your outreach, you can try those, but get to a response. Even if that response is a no, be persistent, send 5 emails before you disqualify the people. That's my advice. That is it, people. As you know now, I have some things to do. I'm going to go take care of those. So, au revoir.